everybody. It's Kerry with the week ahead look. I'm a little late. Mercury's retrograde. Let's have it be that. But we do have an intense week ahead, I think. Possibly the most intense week of the month, even though that's somewhat unbelievable. And the reason why I'm saying that is that there's a few things. All right, so let's overview this. What is applying this week is let's go back to Rahu, okay? Rahu is still in Shatabhishak nakshatra all this month, all next month. Okay, the world is going to be moving rapidly. We're seeing world events that are unprecedented and extremely unsettling. There's war themes this week in the sense of planetary war. We have a couple different things coming up, so I'll go over that. Venus and Saturn right now, and Mars and Mercury later in the week. Yeah, there's some intense stuff going on. About midweek, we're going to have Rahu and Ketu move from retrograde motion, where we're starting now, and wobble over to the direct motion for the rest of the week. So Wednesday, I think that is kind of as a turning point for that. What else? Jupiter is going direct on the 10th. So sometime during the day on March 10th, Jupiter will take direct motion at about 21 degrees Gemini. So it's been in retrograde motion since November 11th. It started out in Cancer, retrograded back into Gemini the first week of December, which since the first week of December, we've had that resumption of Jupiter and Rahu giving a mutual aspect. So that has been very intense for all of us. And Jupiter going direct might change things a little bit. I'm not saying it's going to, the aliens are going to come in and save us or anything, but that would be cool. But we might see some sort of a turning of the tides with Jupiter going into direct motion. The long-term view of Jupiter is it goes direct on the 10th of March, and then it will rewalk all of the final degrees of Gemini once again, moving into Cancer on June 1st. And then we're going to have a rapid transit of Jupiter through Cancer from June through October. So certainly I'll talk about that more. But this is the week where Jupiter goes direct. And I have a lot invested in it myself. So let's see how it goes. The moon will be waning throughout the week. As you can see, the moon is in Libra starting out this week. This is Sunday, the 8th of March. I'm putting this out on today. So you can see that through this week, the moon is going to be passing through Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius, and then into Capricorn finally. So it's a lonely moon in a sense. I always like that for trying to do actions. But let's keep our eye on the fact that Libra is getting the mutual aspect of both Rahu and Jupiter. And Scorpio is the debilitation point of the moon, so that's always a little edgy. And then Sagittarius is getting the mutual aspect of Jupiter, it will be direct by then, and Saturn. So even though it feels like, okay, I have space to work out this, work myself out and deploy some helping measures, the volume is still way high from the rest of the world. So we have to keep focused on our projects and our direction despite the noise and chaos. So let's walk through this week. All right, so we're starting here on the 8th. This is Sunday. And I've come up with my keywords for the week for each day. And what I'm doing is I'm combining the nakshatra position of the moon with the tithi position of the moon without going into too many details. I've just come up with keywords for us out of my own head. All right, so March 8th, we got focused achievement. This is moon starting out the day in Libra, and by tomorrow morning, the moon will have moved over into Scorpio. So the nakshatra that goes between those two is Vishaka. It's like a gateway, an arched gateway is one of the symbols, or a forked lightning is another. So it does tend to be a dynamic nakshatra. So focused achievement. Like I said, the volume is loud, but you still want what you want. So you've got to find your channel toward one step at a time, getting closer to your long-term goals. So that's what's going on with the moon. Look up in the upper left-hand corner of that chart. Look at Venus and Saturn. Today is the day that Venus will move past Saturn. So I'm going to talk about planetary war for a minute. There's a lot of different rules. The way I interpret planetary war is I exclude the sun and moon. They're not in wars, and Rahu and Ketu are not in wars. The other 5 planets, when they approach each other and they try to occupy the same degree, it's like somebody else sitting in this chair with me. It would be awkward, and we would be struggling, like who gets to be on the camera and who gets to be behind, right? So it's kind of like that when 2 planets are in the same degree of the zodiac. And the idea is the one that's approaching, in this case Venus is approaching Saturn, in that degree, until it reaches the degree and passes by Saturn, Venus is losing the war. And then once it hits Saturn, the total conjunction happens, and then Venus will move faster and onward. Then Venus was winning the war. And then the war is over after they're separated by a degree. So it's really a brief thing usually, unless it's 2 very slow-moving planets like Saturn and Jupiter. So right this minute, Venus is losing. As the day goes on, Venus wins. What does that mean? To me, Venus is compassion and empathy and art and creativity and relationships and diplomacy, taking care of all the people. So on a personal level, and maybe hopefully on a worldwide level, this is the idea of like actual diplomatic voices being heard. For you, maybe it's running up on that creative block, or all the other duties and things you had to do before you could actually do your art project or whatever you might be creating right now. So like this could be a day where, focused achievement. Find one thing you just want to do and push through the barriers for the rest of the day and get that one thing done. For me, it's getting this YouTube video done. I didn't have time yesterday. So, all right, let's move on to Monday. So Monday, the 9th of March, emotional discipline. Monday is the moon's day, moon day, Monday. Moon has moved over into Scorpio. This is Anuradha Nakshatra. Anuradha is good for relationships and contracts and that kind of thing. I'm not saying go sign contracts right now because Mercury is still retrograde through March 20th, all this week. So, but you could at least examine things and find emotional management, emotional discipline. That idea of like, yes, with all the world swirling around you, how are you going to react to that? You can't control it. You can attempt to at least manage your own emotions, stay disciplined and focused. Focused achievement into emotional discipline, Sunday, Monday. All right, let's move to Tuesday. Tuesday is the 10th. The moon is, 16 degrees 30 Scorpio. 16 degrees 40 Scorpio is the beginning of Jesta Nakshatra. So just after sunrise, really, the moon, and if you're in the US, right, the moon will move into Jesta Nakshatra. So for the most part, let's just say Tuesday is Jesta. So strategic management are my words for today. Jesta Nakshatra has to do with, there is Mercury vibes there. There's Mars and Mercury. So that idea of strategic management really fits. Again, we still have to get our stuff done. We still can't control what's going on in the news and in the world, but we can stay focused and keep putting one foot in front of the other. All right, the other thing that happens today, Tuesday, is Jupiter goes direct. So you can see there's an underline still there at sunrise at the beginning of the day. But as the day goes on, Jupiter's going to stop in his tracks there at 21 degrees Gemini and think about it and then start moving forward again. It's almost an exact aspect that Jupiter stationing direct is giving to retrograde Mercury over there. So that's in the gaggle of planets in Aquarius. We've got Sun still there. It's moving on Saturday, the 14th. And then we've got Rahu, Mercury, Mars. So that's the intensity that I'm seeing about this week, is really Mars approaching Rahu, while retrograde Mercury is also, it's like a sandwich coming in on Rahu. So retrograde Mercury coming down and then Mars applying, right? So that's intense. Mars and Rahu combinations can be really intense. Think amplified aggression. The good news is by that time when Mars and Rahu come together, which is Friday, Jupiter at least will be direct and sort of monitoring the situation. How that can look for you is stop, look, and listen. Don't just react to everything. Don't give us the aggressive reaction this week. Like the world's already doing that. You don't have to do that. Just control yourself. So intense, it's going to be intense. So strategic management is the word for March 10th, Tuesday. Okay, let's go to the Wednesday. Wednesday, March 11th. Mercury, Mars squeezing closer and closer to Rahu, Mars especially. Jupiter's gone direct. Sun's moving toward the border there. Venus has passed Saturn. Now look, by Wednesday, we've got Venus at 12 degrees. Saturn's still back there at 9. So that war thing is over. Sunday, Monday, Venus has moved on. Venus is exalted in the sign of Pisces. So later on in March, it'll reach that degree of exaltation, like around the 22nd, 23rd of March, 24th. And then on the 25th, Venus moves to Aries. So I feel like that's positive. That's a positive thing for me, especially with Jupiter, the ruler of Pisces, being in direct motion. So even though things aren't going to get all fixed this week, and there could be some intense aggression, at least Venus and Jupiter are in a position to start helping. They're the big helpers. So Mercury's still a little wigged out with the retrograde motion. So March 11th, intense assertion. Yes, it's intense. Stay focused, assert. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? Even as one thing on Wednesday. The moon, so yes, the moon, let's mention the moon again. So Jesta is where it starts. So it's almost like Tuesday and Wednesday has that Jesta energy. But look at, it's 28 degrees 23 at sunrise. It's moving across into Sagittarius that morning on Wednesday. So I talk about that borderline between Scorpio and Sag a lot. It's the Gandanta zone. I always feel like it's a big leap of faith that takes courage. So Wednesday might be a big day in the sense of like that intense assertion, like I am leaping that gap. I'm going for it. You can't doubt yourself when you're leaping a gap. You have to be confident and go for it. So intense, emotional intensity. Find your willpower, find your assertion. Stick to it. Okay. 12th. This is March 12th, Thursday. It's Jupiter's day. The moon is starting out that day in Mula Nakshatra. Our words for the 12th are transformative clearing. Transformative clearing. The nodes have gone direct on this day. So Wednesday into Thursday seems like a little tipping point, big leap. If you leapt over a gap, and you left your suitcase back there, well, that's not needed anymore. clear it out. You're on your new road now. So release what needs to go Thursday. Make space for what you want to create. Jupiter and Moon will be opposite to each other on Thursday and Friday. Jupiter is now direct. Things might start clearing up in your mind. Even though there's still chaos and volume and things you can't control on the outside, Thursday and Friday might bring you to this point of like, okay, I at least see the first 3 steps. I'm gonna orient myself toward those first 3 steps. So you got to clear out what you don't need. Transformative clearing Thursday. All right, Friday, the 13th, again, 2 months in a row. That happens when you got a Friday the 13th in February when it's not a leap year. You're going to have 2 months in a row of Friday the 13th. So Friday the 13th, resilient release. So we were already clearing that. Again, that Thursday, Friday feels a similar energy to me. It's probably the Sagittarius thing. So I pointed out that Jupiter is aspecting the moon. That's positive and directional. But also Saturn is also aspecting the moon when it's in Sagittarius. So that's a balance of like, yeah, I have this direction. I want to go this way. But I can't just forget that there's restraints and limitations. That's Saturn reminding you. And maybe that's hey, just keep it on a slower pace. Again, 1 step at a time. That's Saturn's jam. No cutting corners for Saturn. So resilient release. And this is actually the day that Mars catches up to Rahu. Look at the degrees up there in Aquarius, 14 degrees something, right? We're going to round up and say 15 degrees right in the middle of Aquarius. Mars is coming up to Rahu. And that is power, right? Mars is power and fire and aggression and also strategy and also planning and also protection on a good day. Right up there with Rahu, who is chaos and instability, but this is also a direct Rahu. Remember, Wednesday through the end of the week, Rahu's actually through the beginning of next week too, Rahu's going to be direct. So let's tack, right? The wind is still going, but let's go in a different direction. All right, and our words are resilient release, again, for Friday that 13th. It's intense, but we're brave, and we can let go of that suitcase back there on the cliff, and that might mean you making a change in your life. Maybe you're releasing something old so that you can reach toward a higher branch, something like that. Okay, Saturday the 14th. The moon will move overnight into Capricorn. This is Uttarashada Nakshatra, ruled by the sun and bridging the gap between Sagittarius and Capricorn. The moon is a little bit hidden here. This might be the day where you take a day and don't talk to many people. Saturday, and our words are initiate and overcome. So Capricorn is a Saturn-ruled sign, but it is also a movable sign. It likes to initiate and do things. And with Mars and Rahu still kind of kissing there, I mean, you can see now that Mars has moved past true node Rahu overnight from Friday to Saturday. And now there's a war coming between Mars and Mercury. So Mercury retrograde and Saturn are going to smash up into each other next weekend, Saturday and Sunday. So that's another war, right? At the beginning, Mars is losing and Mercury retrograde is winning. And then as Mars moves past retrograde Mercury, the tables turn and Mars wins. So the other thing that's happening on Saturday is the sun moves into Pisces. So the sun moves out of the eclipse zone finally and on into Pisces. The sun likes Pisces better. It's his friend Jupiter's sign. So that's not without complications, though. We'll talk about that next week because the sun is moving up to Saturn and they're not super good friends either. So that'll be next week's talk. But toward the end of the day on Saturday the 14th, the sun moves over into Pisces. And then we've got this smash up of Rahu, Mars, Mercury all together left in Aquarius. So yeah, I don't really see the volume turning down this week. It's an intense week. I picked a picture for the thumbnail. It's a spring beauty flower that I found, and then it snowed 10 inches on top of that thing. But the idea is it's this tiny, tiny little flower. One of the first ones to come up here in where I live in Rocky Mountain National Park. So very delicate, tiny little flower. Doesn't last long, and it could get hit by snow the next day. Right. So this idea of like all of us being little delicate flowers, navigating our way through an intense world that doesn't really care, we're all at risk of getting crushed at any moment, and it is scary. So stick together. Don't lose hope. Jupiter's going direct. And the sun moves 1 degree a day. And that is something we can count on, right? It's going to rise up in the morning and set in the evening. And that pace of 1 day at a time is our mantra, I think, this week as we navigate through all this intensity. So once again, the 14th, initiate and overcome. You have to take that step no matter what, and we're going to get there. All right, that's what I've got for you this week. Thanks again for tuning in. Love your comments. I think it's fun to respond to them. I try my best to do that. And I really appreciate you watching. Thank you so much. Bye.